Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are tackling something that sounds, well, deceptively simple, but might actually be the hardest thing any of us ever try to do. We're talking about the purpose of life.
Small topic, just a light warm up.
Right, a casual Tuesday chat.
Yeah.
But specifically, we're looking at the pursuit of happiness. And before you roll your eyes and think we're about to get into, like, a pool of vague live, laugh, love platitudes, let me stop you.
Yeah.
Because the guide we're unpacking today takes a very different stance.
It really does. It fundamentally disagrees with the way most of us operate. The central premise here, and it's based on this incredible collaboration between the Dalai Lama and Dr. Howard Cutler, is that happiness isn't a gift.
No.
It's not a stroke of luck, and it's not some personality trait you're either born with or you aren't.
It's a skill. That's the headline. They treat happiness like it's a training manual. They're basically saying you can train for contentment the same way you train for a marathon or learn to code.
Exactly. We're moving away from this idea of happiness as some fleeting emotional high and toward what they call lasting contentment. And what I love about this material is that it breaks it down into, well, mechanics. It's not magic, it's mental engineering.
Okay, so let's look at the first concept, which they visualize as a scale. Picture an old school weighing scale. On one side, you have external events.
All the stuff we chase.
Right, all the stuff we spend our lives chasing. Money, status, the new car, the promotion.
And then on the other side of that scale is your state of mind. So your inner peace, your perspective, how you process the world.
Now, if I asked 100 people on the street what tips that scale toward happiness, 99 of them would point to the external side. If I just get that raise, the scale tips.
Of course. But this guide argues the exact opposite. The key insight here is that happiness is determined so much more by the state of mind, almost regardless of what's happening on the outside.
They use that example of two people going through the same thing.
Yeah, and it's so powerful you can take two people and put them through the exact same tragedy or, the exact same triumph.
You get two totally different reactions.
Wildly different. One person wins the lottery and is miserable within a year. Another person loses a limb and finds a deeper sense of purpose. The external event isn't the real variable. The mind is.
Which leads us to the mistake we all make. We are constantly trying to fix the outside world to make us feel better inside.
Right. And the correction is to stop trying to pave the whole world with leather so your feet don't hurt and just put on a pair of shoes. I mean, you have to seek it internally through mental development.
The athletics analogy.
That's it. You wouldn't expect to pick up a violin and play a concerto without any practice. So why do we expect to be happy without practicing our mindset?
And I think that distinction between what we think happiness is and what it actually is, that's crucial. Because half the time when we say happiness, we just mean pleasure.
And the guide draws a really hard line between those two. They use two vivid images to separate them. For pleasure, the image is fireworks and candy.
Which, to be fair, are two of my favorite things.
They're great, but look at the characteristics. Pleasure is sensory, it's based on sight, sound, taste, it's immediate. It has these huge peaks, the firework exploding, but then what happens?
It goes dark, you come down.
Exactly, high peaks and low valleys. And the biggest problem, it relies entirely on external circumstances. You need the candy, the compliment, the new phone. Take that stimulus away and the feeling just vanishes.
Okay, so contrast that with genuine happiness.
The visual for that is an anchor and a candle.
That feels a lot heavier.
It's grounded. Genuine happiness is mental, not sensory. It's stable. It gives you this underlying sense of peace that stays with you even when things are going wrong. It relies on inner resources, things like passion, patience, resilience.
So the question we should be asking ourselves, and this is a tough one to answer honestly, is this. Is this action moving me toward genuine happiness, or am I just chasing a quick dopamine hit?
It's a powerful filter for your choices.
And speaking of dopamine hits, we have to talk about the biggest one of all, money. The guide lays out what it calls the wealth trap, and they use a pyramid diagram.
This is where we have to be nuanced, because it's not saying money is irrelevant. They talk about a threshold.
Right. I mean, if you are struggling to eat or you don't have a safe place to sleep, money absolutely buys happiness.
100%. Wealth increases happiness until your basic needs are met. Food, shelter, safety. But here is where we all get tricked. We think that line just keeps going up and up.
It doesn't.
No, the guide shows a plateau. Beyond that survival threshold, more wealth often just creates more anxiety. It stops correlating with happiness.
They mention that data point about wealthy nations not having proportionally happier citizens. In fact, Depression rates have risen in the West, even though our standard of living is higher than what kings had a few centuries ago.
It's the hedonic treadmill. We run faster, get more stuff, but our happiness level just stays in the same place.
So if money is just that bottom sliver of the pyramid, what are the actual pillars holding up genuine happiness?
Well, the guide lists four. First is inner contentment, just being satisfied with what you have. Second is health, both physical and mental. Third is connection, deep relationships. And fourth is meaningful work. A sense of purpose.
It's funny, isn't it? We spend, what, 90% of our energy trying to expand the money part of the pyramid?
And we usually sacrifice health and connection to do it. We're building the pyramid upside down. It's totally unstable.
Okay, so let's say we buy into this. We want the anchor, not the fireworks. How do we actually do it? Because you said it's a skill. The guide outlines a methodology of mental training.
It's a four-stage cycle. And again, this isn't just think happy thoughts. Step one is learning. You have to analyze your own mind. You have to intellectually understand which states of mind lead to happiness and which ones lead to suffering.
So awareness first. You catch yourself feeling jealous and you actually notice, oh, this feels terrible.
Right. Then step two is conviction. You have to develop a firm belief that this is true for you. It's not just some theory. You believe that changing this pattern will actually change your life.
And then comes determination, the commitment to change. And finally, the hardest part, action and repetition.
Which brings us right back to that musician analogy. Rewiring your brain, and this is real neuroplasticity, it takes thousands of hours. You have to implement these habits until they become your natural default setting.
I love that reality check. Genuine transformation takes time. We all want the 30 days to a new you.
Yeah.
But this is like a lifetime practice.
And probably the most important muscle to exercise in that practice is compassion.
Now, this is a word that gets thrown around a lot, but the guide gets pretty technical with it. They visualize it as expanding the circle.
Right. Most of us are stuck in the very center circle. Biological compassion. This is the easy stuff. It's attachment. You love your kids, your partner, your best friend.
It's easy to be compassionate to people who are nice to you.
Exactly, but that's unstable. If your best friend betrays you, that compassion can just vanish. The goal of the training is to move to the outer circle, universal compassion.
Which is based on what?
On our shared humanity.
Yeah.
And this is the logical argument. You recognize that universal compassion is stable because it doesn't depend on how the other person treats you. It recognizes that isolation is really the enemy.
There's that specific protocol for this called Just Like Me. And I've actually tried this in traffic, and it's surprisingly disarming.
Walk us through it.
Okay, so someone cuts you off, or maybe someone's being rude in a meeting. Instead of just reacting, you silently say to yourself, this person wants to be happy, just like me. This person wishes to avoid suffering, just like me.
It's incredible how fast that can dissolve the us versus them mentality. It just humanizes the enemy instantly.
It really does. But let's bring it closer to home. Moving from strangers to the people we actually live with. The guide has a section on deepening connection, and they drop a very specific metric on us.
The 5.1 metric.
Yeah.
This is a scary number for a lot of people. The research suggests that for a relationship to thrive, for every one criticism or negative interaction, you need 5 genuine appreciations or positive interactions.
5 to 1. I feel like on a stressful Tuesday evening, most of us are operating at, what, 1 to 1, maybe 5 criticisms to 1 grunt of acknowledgement.
And that's why relationships fall apart. The guide distinguishes between romance, which is that biological, temporary infatuation, and connection, which requires shared values and, real friendship.
They break down intimacy into 3 components: vulnerability, respect, and deep listening. I want to zero in on deep listening because I think it's just a lost art.
It is. Most of us don't really listen. We just wait for our turn to speak. Deep listening means giving your undivided attention without planning your response.
That is so hard. You're halfway through their sentence and your brain is already drafting your comeback.
The actionable tip here is to practice this for just 10 minutes a day. Put the phone down, shut off your internal monologue, and just tune into someone. It's transformative.
But let's be real. Even if we listen and we practice the just like me thing, people are annoying. Things go wrong. We get angry. The guide has a visual for the anatomy of anger that is pretty brutal.
It's the metaphor of the hot coal. Getting angry is like picking up a hot coal to throw at someone else. You are the one who gets burned first.
It's such a good image.
Yeah.
We think our anger is punishing them, but it's actually destroying us.
And physiologically, it's true. It destroys your peace of mind, it clouds your judgment, raises your blood pressure, and externally, it almost never solves the problem. It usually just escalates it.
So what's the protocol? When that red mist descends, what do we do?
Well, the antidote is patience, which they define as emotional stability in difficulty. And the technique is the 10-second pause.
This is counting to 10.
It sounds childish, I know, but it's biological. When you get angry, your amygdala, your lizard brain, hijacks the system. Counting to 10 forces your prefrontal cortex, the logic center, to come back online. You disrupt that reactive circuit.
And closely related to anger is its cousin, anxiety. The guide offers this flowchart, a logical approach to anxiety that I frankly wish I had tattooed on my arm.
It's a logic tree. It asks one simple question: is the problem solvable?
Okay, path 1. Yes, the problem is solvable.
Then there is no need to worry. Take action, plan, execute. Worrying is just wasted energy. Use that energy to actually solve it.
Path 2. And no,
Yeah.
the problem is not solvable. It's out of my control.
Then worrying will not help. So practice acceptance.
So in both scenarios,
Yeah.
the answer is don't worry.
Exactly. The key insight is that anxiety is usually one of two things. It's either rumination on something you could be fixing, so go fix it, or it's spiraling about something you can't fix, so let it go.
Easier said than done, obviously.
Of course, that's why they suggest having worry time. Designate a 15-minute window at like 5 p.m. If you get anxious at 10 in the morning, you just tell yourself, not now, I'll freak out about this at 5:00. Usually by 5:00, you've forgotten about it.
I like that. Compartmentalizing the crazy. Let's look inward again. Restoring self-esteem. The visual is a mirror. On one side, you've got the inner critic just beating you up.
And on the other, the Buddha nature. Now, Buddha nature sounds religious, but in this context, it just means your basic human potential, your capacity for happiness. The guide argues that self-hatred comes from unrealistic expectations. We think we need to be perfect to be worthy.
So the shift is from self-loathing, or its opposite, arrogance, toward self-compassion.
And the tip is so simple but profound. Talk to yourself like you're talking to a dear friend. When you make a mistake, would you say, "You idiot, you ruin everything"? No. You'd say, "It's okay, you'll get it next time." Why don't we offer ourselves that same grace?
Now we're getting into the advanced training. This is the heavy lifting, transforming suffering. Because no matter how positive we are, bad things happen.
They do. And the visual here is a prism. Suffering hits the prism of your mind, and how it refracts depends on you. You can fall into the traps of avoidance or victimhood.
But the goal is transformation.
Right. And they introduce a technique called Ponglen. It means giving and taking.
This one blew my mind a bit because it feels completely backward.
It does. I mean, usually visualization is breathe in white light, breathe out stress. Tonlin flips it. On the in-breath, you visualize taking in the suffering of others, imagining it as dark smoke.
Wait, breathe in the smoke.
Right.
Why would I want to inhale that? That sounds like a recipe for burnout.
It sounds dangerous, but psychologically it's about courage. It breaks the pattern of avoidance. By willing yourself to face the darkness, you reduce your self-absorption. You realize, I'm not the only one suffering. It connects you to everyone else.
So it turns your own pain into empathy. That leads right into the next concept, making peace with impermanence. The visual is a clock and a river.
The truth is, everything changes. The river never stops. We suffer because we try to freeze time. We cling to our youth, our possessions, our relationships as if they're going to last forever.
But accepting that everything ends, that sounds kind of depressing.
It's a paradox, actually. The guide argues that accepting that nothing lasts leads to a greater appreciation of the now. If you know the vacation ends on Sunday, you enjoy Saturday more. It reduces anxiety about the future because you stop fighting the flow of the river.
The actionable tip is non-attachment appreciation. Enjoying the moment fully because you know it's temporary.
It makes the moment sweeter.
We're nearing the end of the manual here. We have to talk about meaning beyond self.
They use a Venn diagram here. A meaningful life is found at the intersection of connection, contribution, growth, and your values.
And they make a distinction I really appreciate. Spirituality versus religion.
Yes, religion is institutions and dogmas. Spirituality, in this guide, is defined as having qualities like compassion, patience, tolerance. You can be deeply spiritual without being religious at all.
And meaning comes from serving something bigger than yourself. So the takeaway is to define a personal mission statement. What contribution can I make?
Exactly.
So we've got the theory, we've got the techniques. How do we fit this into a normal Tuesday? The guide gives us a daily protocol.
And it structures the day really simply. Morning, set your intention. I will use this day to benefit others. And just start with gratitude.
Midday, mindful pauses. Just 3 conscious breaths between meetings. And a perspective check, asking yourself, is this really that important?
And then evening, reflection. What went well? What can I improve? And letting go, clearing the cache before you sleep.
There's a quote here that sums up the whole training aspect perfectly.
Yeah.
Consistently orienting your mind toward positive qualities matters more than the specific duration of practice.
It's about the direction you're facing, not just how fast you're running.
We've reached the final visual, the path forward. It's a road stretching toward the sun with signposts: discipline, compassion, acceptance, practice.
It summarizes it all, really. Happiness isn't something you find, it's something you build. Connection is the cure for suffering. And all those obstacles, anger, anxiety, they're just part of the training.
The final quote from the guide is, happiness is possible, it requires work, but it is the most worthwhile work you can do.
It puts the power right back in your hands.
So, here is the thought we want to leave you with today. If we accept this premise that happiness is a skill, just like playing the violin, then the question isn't, why am I not happy?
And the question is, how much did you practice today?
And if you didn't practice, well, why do you expect to feel the music?
Go practice your scales.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.